So, guys, I have here with me Brad Kimes, and I know a lot of the people following this space love and appreciate Brad. In fact, Judy and I have been subscribed to Brad from practically the very beginning that we had gotten into this space. One of the absolute OGs. And Brad, thank you so much for just coming on and doing this kind of. We're just going to have a conversation. This kind of, I don't know if we call it interview, but we'll just have a conversation. And I really appreciate you being here.
Well, David, thank you for having me, man. And it's a pleasure to be here. And it's always been great to see you and your wife and meet you guys. Every year we see each other at XRP Las Vegas. And it's just really wonderful. And it's really just goes to speak to the great sense of community that we all have with one another, whether we're influencers or whether we're just people in the XRP community itself or XRP family, I should say, right?
Yeah.
And it's really great, man. So thank you for having me. It's wonderful. It's been a
Oh.
long time coming to sit down talk with you.
Yeah, no, I've almost like, I almost lusted for this conversation. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like one of those things, when interestingly enough, so when you meet somebody you really admire sometimes, you know how you get like all tongue-tied and stuff like that. So at the last XRP Vegas, I happened to be able to meet with Brad Garlinghouse, and I got the chance to, meet with David Swartz. And when I meet these guys, I remember I had was shaking Brad's hand, and I pulled him in close and said, "I just can't believe I'm shaking your hand." That's all I could say. I didn't know what else to say, and stuff like that. But you're somebody I really respect and appreciate in this space for sure. And I have some kind of things I thought would be really great for the audience. Because I haven't heard, and this is a question I've wanted to kind of ask. How did you and Danielle ever get into this digital asset space? How did that start for you?
Well, it's a really great question. I've always been an investor, and for a lot of years, in a previous life of mine, I owned real estate for 15 years, property earning real estate. And
Mhm.
then after that, I sold that stuff, and I wanted to get into something else, obviously. And I found a sector of industry at the time that was uh, allowed to be invested in, but they weren't cracking down on it. And I don't want to say it so you get a strike on your channel, but it was
Mm,
an industry that's, in some states it's legal, in some states it's not, right?
okay,
And I
okay.
started investing in that industry because at that time the administration was not coming down on it federally.
Mm,
So I was investing in that and having great success. Actually, I invested in a company that Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg were invested in, amongst
okay,
many others.
right.
And 8 months later, it became the first company of that industry to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So
Wow,
it
wow,
was like
wow.
a huge grand slam win for us. And
Yep.
during that investment run and learning about that space, because I didn't know much about what that space was, right? So as I was educating myself in that space, as many people do, I joined investor groups and different communities to learn about it. And I kept hearing people saying Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And
Mm.
and I kept thinking, and I remember how just unaware of it I was. I was like, does anybody know what the Bitcoin is? Like, you know,
That's right.
like
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
didn't
Yeah.
even know how to like phrase it in a sentence. But then
Yeah.
obviously, like most other people do, then I was looking down that list and I discovered, it was pretty much well and away, like farther away than I wanted to get in at that point. But it
Okay.
was exciting. And then I went down the list and I quickly found Ripple and XRP. And when I
Mm.
did and saw the connection with the Federal Reserve Faster Payments Task Force,
Yeah.
I was done, right? So
Yeah.
then I was
Yeah.
in. But to the
And what
YouTube,
time frame was that for you? Like what
that
year
was
roughly?
that was 2016 into 2017, and then
Oh,
I
wow.
finally invested in 2017 because I
Okay.
like to get to know a space before I start laying my money in.
Right. Yeah, that makes common sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
I
No,
took
that's
some
awesome.
time to really
Hmm.
understand that space before I got in. Now, on
Yeah.
the YouTube front, I
Hmm.
got into doing YouTube. I was really like following a bunch of people. And again, I was so naive to this space. True
Yeah.
story. I used to follow it was Tony Thinking Crypto, Jungle Inc.,
Yeah.
CKJ. I was a regular inside his stream, Alex Cobb, right? All these
Hmm.
guys that were out here already doing it just so I could get acclimated to what the space was. I'll tell you how
Right.
unaware I was. I was like an observer in many different live streams that people would have and stuff like that. And I was learning stuff. Then I got to be a contributor, and my handle used to be Backup Bradley. which,
Okay, that's where
and I,
Mrs. Backup comes from. Yeah. Okay.
right.
Okay.
And then I
Okay.
got that name because I was like a backup kind of researcher in like CKJ's live streams and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was so unaware of how YouTube worked. And back in that day, if I saw you come out with a video 2 hours after CKJ or somebody else and you were covering the same thing, I thought you stole the content, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how,
yeah. That makes sense. I could see that because you
when
think,
you
oh, well,
first,
these are all he got it out first. This is all copycat stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
when really it's all of us are just kind of, we're trying drinking from the same well is kind of
of
how I
course.
like to put it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's exactly right. It's
Yeah,
just my own naivete and immaturity of understanding the space
right.
at the time, right?
Yeah,
But we've all grown since then, and that kind of thing. And you quickly get your bearings
yeah.
around it, because I used to think I used to talk with CKJ all the time, and I'd be like, "Oh, DAI just stole your content, and this one stole your content," and then because I didn't even
Sure.
understand how YouTube worked, right? But
Yeah.
then I ended
Yeah.
up growing. And then I had Mr. B XRP introduce me to DAI. And then when I met him, I
Mhm.
actually told him, I said, dude, I used to think you were stealing content from everybody, and then they were stealing from you. And he's like, hey, man, we're all talking about the
Yeah, he's
same
one of
thing.
the most humblest guys in this space. When I was at XRP Vegas, the very first one, and I saw the line of people lining up, to kind of talk with him because he's such a, he's iconic in the space, I guess,
Yes,
if
he
you will.
is.
And, I just saw the way in which he interacted with each person rather than look ahead of the line or anything. He's looking right at them. I thought, boy, this guy is a class act. And so, no, that was great. Well, I appreciate that because it is kind of interesting. We all have a story of how we entered into this space. I knew about Bitcoin from almost day one because I used to be a special enforcement officer working in the tax department in Canada. I did that for about
Nice.
25 years at various levels. Well, when 2008 to 2011, that's the job I was kind of doing, special enforcement. Well, Bitcoin comes out in 2009. And, it picked up a lot of steam with these guys in the underground economy between 2010 11 as a means of consideration, because back then they believed that it was an untraceable form of, kind of money, like a monetary. And I remember Judy just saying, wow, what do you think about these getting into Bitcoins? And, I was like so prejudiced against it because of course, I'm looking at it from the angle of, Mo, this is up to no good all in the fair. I look, drinking the Kool-Aid. Heck, I was practically serving it up at the time. But
Yeah.
needless to say, it was only, I think, back then, very difficult to get, but it was about 25, 30 cents. Judy is never, not ever going to let me live that one down. And so, yeah, yeah. But finding out about XRP was a big eye opener for us. And you can, like you were saying there, you kind of start that investigative journey and you end up going down the rabbit hole and you start connecting the dots. And for me, once I started to really put that analytical thinking and start connecting, it was like it's almost like, it's like you got a glimpse of the future and you're like, my gosh, So now someone had asked before I came on here because I had my coffee chat and I said, listen, I'm going to have like, a classic OG on later today. And boy, am I looking forward to it. So I told them we were doing this. And they asked me to ask you to talk a little bit about the Shane Ellis theory. Now, I have a smidgen of understanding about that, but what is the Shane Ellis theory? And how do you think that impacts this XRP ecosystem?
Well, it's a great question. And I just want to go back really quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah, DAI is the GOAT, man. I mean,
he is. He is.
that
Absolutely.
guy, and listen, him, Mr. BXRP, and a couple others in my personal mastermind circle have helped me reinvent my entire life because I'm a former professional musician for 30 years. So
Yeah.
I toured, played music, did sessions, bars, you name it, corporate events, the whole thing, top
Yeah.
to bottom. So when the pandemic hit, I
Hmm.
had this channel I was doing as like a half-ass hobby kind of vibe,
Hmm. Hmm.
and just to keep up on the market, and then when that happened, I was like, hey, I really have to figure something out here.
Right,
And it
right,
was
right.
and it was him who really helped me change my life. So we have the most fun about how I first got into the space, what I actually thought about this space then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And joke about like where we're at now, you know what I mean? And just like
Oh yeah,
where
oh
we've
yeah.
come from.
Now you guys are leading the charge, man.
It's
It's kind of
crazy.
and it is interesting because one domino knocks another one off, and there's a favorite proverb I have. It says, many of the plans of a man's heart, it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And sometimes you look back and say, how did I end up here? Wow, look at those connections. Didn't even see that coming. And yeah, it's pretty well. And I guess, after we maybe touch base on the Shane Ellis theory, something I want to touch base because you started up, of course, XRP Las Vegas, and I would like to kind of get the genesis of that and how that started. That would be one of the questions I'd like to kind of hear how that happened, a little story there. But yeah, if I think that's great about where we are and all that kind of stuff and things like that. And you have an insight into this space because of the time that you've been in it. In a lot of ways, we know a lot of new people are onboarding all the time. We're getting new people, new wallets, people just finding out, of course, about XRP and things like that, and are looking at it. Now, some people may feel like, oh, I missed the boat. My estimation is we're just still so early, and I'm not sure, but I think you would concur with that. But going back to the whole Shane Ellis thing, how would you describe that to folks to kind of get that out there?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the Shane Ellis theory came out around 2018, 2019 timeframe.
Mhm.
So we're
Uh-huh.
really going back a minute here, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what's interesting is that today there's more relevant things that line up with that possibly taking place. In fact, I just recovered it this morning, oddly
Okay.
enough, or
Okay.
ironically enough, I should say.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Shane Ellis theory is really a theory about the large institutional players that will ultimately use XRP coming into the retail exchanges and buying up the loose liquidity of XRP off of the exchanges to a certain desirable price point, price
Okay.
target.
Okay.
This would involve them buying out all the buy and sell walls up into a target that they want it to be so they can actually set the price naturally and organically by
Mhm.
buying out the market, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
This, I believe, has led to conversations like, Jimmy Valley's Federal Reserve buyback
Yeah.
theory, right? And other theories. I personally have always aligned with the Shane Ellis theory because it is an open free market theory. Anyone can
Mhm.
come buy the market out, right?
Yeah. Right. They can.
And they can, so, and the funny thing is once that market's bought out, the exchanges could put in massive buy and sell walls at that new desired price to ensure that that price is there because
So they
that's
could
not
set a
illegal.
ceiling and a floor roughly or a range that it would trade. It makes sense. I mean, when you think about the utilization of what XRP is meant to be in solving nostro vostro in, I mean, cross-border remittances, I know we hear about it so much for those of us who've been in the space a long time that it's kind of like you get desensitized to it, but it is the killer app when you consider how the world financial system functions right now. And, solving that massive liquidity problem would be just phenomenal. Trillions of dollars released that are locked up in Nostro Vostro, of course. And right now, the market cap of XRP, not Ripple the company, but XRP, the digital asset, is surpassing massive, like Nike and Starbucks and, some of these major financial players. It's rivaling in terms of market cap even right now. So to think that you could see a situation where I guess market makers supposedly could put it at a realm where look, in its total utility, I think that is certainly possible. Now, will we see that this cycle? I'm not too sure. What do you think about the new administration coming in and the potential for regulatory clarity within the next 4 years? What do you think about that?
I
Like
think we
Fit
get it.
21, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think we get it. And listen, I mean, this is a guy who's been president before,
Yep.
and he was not embracing of crypto. And he
Right.
was very adamant about that. And now he is. And the picks that he's making for his cabinet and his appointees to his administration are absolutely pro crypto. And he's very verbal. He's not mixing any language. And we're well past the election at this point. If he wasn't going to do it, he just stopped talking about it on November 6th. Right. So
Yeah.
the reality is that we're here. And he is still promising to get these done. He's still making appointments of people who will embrace crypto. So I think it is one of the most bullish times. And I've actually said this in my private group, and I'll say it again here with you because I think it's the absolute truth.
Mhm.
If this administration is able to accomplish everything in the way of getting our country back on track with getting the debt under control, getting the Department of Government Efficiency to scout and scale down government to a size that puts it back in we the people's hands. I
Right.
feel like that, and embracing innovation like AI, crypto, robotics, and automation to really bring, the American innovator into the fourth industrial revolution and to make the America a country a leader in this industry and
Mm.
beyond. I think that this administration could go down as just as important as the founding fathers of this country,
Wow,
because that's
that's a
how,
big statement. Yeah,
and
well,
I
I
mean it, and
yeah,
I mean every single word of it, David. I mean
that
every
because
single
it
word.
is definitely a pivotal moment. I mean, we have not seen the transition or the evolution of currency probably, for certain when it comes to coin and that type of thing. You're talking thousands of years that coin is around, but I mean, with when you're dealing with paper and this kind of stuff like that, like this is a major, major pivotal point in the evolution of what money is or what monetary instruments are. And one of the things I think excites this community big time, of course, is the proposition that they may even make XRP non-capital gains, no tax free. Should that happen, I think, my gosh, I mean, you would see, I think, a lot of institutional players just gobbling it up like crazy, considering the fact that any gains they see would not even be taxable. And who knows if that's only for a period of time in order to bring in the innovation. But that is a
Well,
good perspective. Yeah.
Well, David, think of this for a moment. You
Mhm.
know, they're using XRP for payments. You
Right.
gonna charge me capital gains for me using it for a payment? You
Right.
know,
Right. Right. Yeah.
it doesn't really wash, right?
Right.
The other
Right.
side of this too, if he makes all US companies and projects and tokens that are located in the US no capital gains tax, you have a rush for people to want to come in and get that asset for that reason alone. And
Right.
that does a couple things. One,
Hmm.
it creates a desirability to hold a US asset, native asset, which
Right.
is incredible. And it
Hmm.
shows the support and the money goes in behind it. Number two, what I see also is I see the moment happening where this is a great way to educate the rest of the country and the world on how to hold stable coins,
Yeah.
because they have to have a stable coin to get into this asset that has no capital gains on it. So you're going to
Mhm.
see a mass exodus out of the assets that do have capital gains into XRP. And for the people who have not had a chance to get in this market yet, they're damn sure going to be inspired to want to get a hold of this asset because there's no capital gains on it.
Yeah.
So now
That's.
you have this quick educational moment where people are
Mhm.
going to be, I'll figure out what a stable coin is because I want some of that no cap gains right there.
Yeah.
And in a very short period of time, you've just acclimated the country on how to use a digital dollar.
And I think that transition, just like kind of this technology, I mean, I remember
That's right.
2007 phones coming out. I mean, now you even got grade schoolers, kindergartners that have them, and, they know how to use them even better than I do, or we do.
Me
My
too.
grandchildren know how to use that phone way more than better. But the thing is how seamless that was,
Yeah,
for in its transition.
exactly.
And I would agree. I think that, when you see these assets being utilized, for what they're actually designed to do, and you're not seeing capital gains on that, I think it would also attract a lot of development with the developers coming in and things like
Right.
that. And, maybe some, innovation and invention there, a lot of the, decentralized applications, kind of like the applications we see on our devices. And you don't know. I mean, some of those are going to be winners, of course. And things like that. But in so with respect to the whole SEC kind of thing that went on over the last couple of years and things like that, you followed that very closely, probably closer than most of us did in terms of what was transpiring. So right at this point in history, like because of where we are with this new administration, the people that are appointing, what do you foresee happening with this case probably within the next few months, maybe the first 100 days?
It's interesting because there's a few things that it could break, right? There's a few things that could happen. One, the new appointed SEC chair, Paul Atkins, once he's appointed, which will probably March, April,
Hmm. Hmm.
by the time that goes through, maybe they drop the case of the appeal,
Hmm.
and then I would expect Ripple to drop the cross appeal
Hmm.
and it goes away.
Hmm.
But I could also see a scenario that people don't. throw stones, everyone. But I could also see a situation where they say, let's let this go
Right.
to the Supreme Court level to get the finality on this asset because it's that important to the financial system, right?
Right.
So
No,
I
that's good.
don't rule out
Mhm.
the idea that it could still go the distance, and it wouldn't be because they're
Mm.
trying to squash it out. It
Right.
could be so they could actually solidify it inside the financial system from a ruling in the highest court of the land.
So then
And
all branches of government, because you would have, let's say, Fit 21 goes through the House and the Senate and, gets approved, by the executive branch. So you'd have, you would have the legislative branch, you'd have the executive branch, and then of course you'd have the judicial branch. So there would be absolute clarity. No, that's a good, I think that's a great observation. I think there is a rationale for that being a positive thing. Now, do you think that that will hinder price should we see something like that happen?
I think if a case stays open, it's going to obviously, hinder the price, but I think it would hinder the retail investor more than it would hinder an institution, though.
Right, right, right.
And I think that's a key point to make. And I think
Mhm.
you brought up something too. Listen, we could see this case dropped and then legislation come through, and there's no need for a highest court of the land. If
Mhm.
legislation's put through and it's done properly, it could
Mhm.
resolve all of this, and there is no issue going forward, which I believe would be the best case scenario because not only would that afford clarity to Ripple and XRP, I would
Mhm.
afford clarity to the entire space so we all know what the rules of the road are. And I think that would be the best outcome, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, rather than having it adjudicated, where there's this ambiguity of what is a security, what's not a security, if we had regulatory clarity where it's clearly defined, what is a commodity, what is a security, what is a monetary instrument, and that type of thing, then yeah, I think you're right. I think that that would be the best way to go. Of course, the court could still adjudicate that because, the Supreme Court helps us to interpret legislation and stuff like that. In terms of like, this particular, ecosystem when it comes to, that aspect of it, should we get any kind of regulatory clarity? And we're watching, global institutions, because you mentioned there that the price not necessarily affecting institutions. How do you see that, in terms of like, let me throw it out this way. If we saw major financial institutions, they're utilizing this asset, what about the probability or possibility of them making it some platform or some mechanism available to the retail investor to, perhaps quote unquote stake their assets? I get this question all the time. And right now there are a lot of nefarious staking platforms that I would just say don't even touch. But what about that future aspect of folks being able to potentially earn a rate of return on the staking of their XRP? Do you think that that's something we could see with maybe 3 to 5 years from now?
Oh, I absolutely believe you're going to see it. I mean, we know automated market makers exist already right now. You don't need them to do that,
Right.
right? But I always look for that institutional offering of a product or service like that because it normally comes with some kind of it's insured or protected in some way. And I personally love that. Now, I don't believe people should lose the right to self custody if that's what they choose. I believe you should
Right.
have that choose because some people are kind of like, you either have it or you don't. What do you believe? It's like, I think
Right.
everyone should have the choice. And I believe that's what really matters most is that
Mhm.
people have the choice to do what they want to do. And I've done self custody for a lot of years and
Right.
I'm ready to have it with
Mhm.
someone, because I don't want to be the one responsible for it being lost or whatever would
Oh,
happen.
no kidding. Yeah, no, the multi-sig thing. I do have a kind of like a viewpoint on that, coming more from the enforcement side of things. So one of the things that I did was, I would teach bankruptcy and insolvency legislation, at least in Canada, and of course we have equivalent legislations here in the United States, and things like that. When it comes to, let's say, someone an insolvency event and somebody has now filed for protection under the bankruptcy legislation and things like that, all worldwide assets are then, transferred to the custody or administration of a trustee. One of the biggest things that we see, at least in that side of things, of course, is, and you hear a lot about it, is bankruptcy fraud or fraudulent preferences and things like that. And people sheltering assets in, vehicles. When I say vehicles, I'm talking about international business corps or different types of legal entities, sheltering them in such a way that they have control, but they don't hold ownership. And of course, this is a type of fraudulent preference. And this is where sometimes I think, with the whole custody aspect, because I do believe it's addressed in the FIT 21 legislation there, the whole custody provisions, that they're wanting to see, financial institutions and infrastructure have the facility to be able to custody these assets and things like that. And I agree with you. I'm a libertarian at heart, and I really want to hold on to the whole self-custody piece of it. I'm not advocating for this, but I'm just throwing it out there as kind of like something to consider when you're dealing with equities right now. We know that you don't get bearer bonds or share certificates. Those are custodied. And the thing is they become a seizable asset, right? In a lawsuit, in this, that, the government, of course. Whereas these assets are very difficult unless that they exist, number one. Number two, you have, the seed phrase or whatever it is. And of course, self-custody gives us that, framework. But in a situation where they're now being recognized and adopted as a legal asset and the way in which that we consider normal legal assets, I do think that self-custody might be something that will be limited. It's kind of like, just because of the way in which these things are. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. But I absolutely agree with you. I am a big proponent of self-custody. And if there was an institutional type of custody provision that is provided, that, 2/3 of that multi-sig would be us, not the institution, at least. So I hear you there.
Well,
Um,
I actually think too, David, to your point, it's like with this self-custody business, if they don't make everyone KYC in
yeah,
order to self-custody, I'll be shocked.
yeah,
And if they don't choose to KYC everybody, to just kind of get your name in the till there, right?
yep,
Then
yep.
I think what'll happen is that when you go to take your self-custody non-registered assets that you've gotten, you're going to go to this exchange, which are the bottlenecks in and out of this system. And they're going to say, hey, going to need you to fill out this paper and tell us where you got this stuff.
Yeah, I think
How
that
long
makes
have you
perfect
had?
sense. Yeah,
Where did you
yeah,
come
yeah.
from?
Why
Right?
haven't you reported it in the past when they made it a legislative requirement, which who knows how the government will figure this out, but which may be subject to some sort of a penalty. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, they
Something.
think this stuff up. Don't kid yourself. They have think tanks thinking stuff up. I remember when they were thinking up, trying in Canada, they were considering taxing people on their reward points that they get for very, because there's a monetary benefit
Gain.
there, and they wanted to tax that. And people are like, are you out of your mind? I mean, so because that would be kind of like a form of capitalizing an unrealized gain because you don't necessarily use those points all the time. How are you going to calculate? But anyway, that went south. But it was thought up. That's the point. And I do think, yeah, we could see some of these kind of like things kind of maybe bounced around, Congress and as they iron all this out. So
And to be
big
clear,
changes
too,
coming.
these are not things that I hope happen. These are just
No, of
things I think
course
the
not.
government
No.
may do.
Yeah, I'm not for this whole big government of, this top-down approach. I think it stifles and actually smothers innovation. It smothers invention. And I think this is where the administration that's coming in is trying to lift the bottle cap off that and say, hey, we want you guys to be able to have the ability to go out there, innovate and invent and see the benefit. And we want to support that with legislation that is going to motivate, that kind of thing happening. And that's how I have always viewed the free market. A free market that is allowed to, of course, there has to be safety measures in there and things like that. But too much oversight literally smothers, suffocates, invent. And having said that, I would say, I would throw this out there. A lot of times in the comments, and maybe you see this as well, people bring, well, what about this? It's just like XRP. Is that going to hurt XRP? And I always come back and I say, well, don't ever, fear competition. Competition is the cure for complacency. And I think Ripple has got some of the brightest, sharpest minds in this space. And look at how they innovated, right? During that whole SEC lawsuit, cost them, I don't know, 200 million US, I think is what Brad was saying, something like Brad Garlinghouse, was saying that. But when you think about that, look at how they were moving their ecosystem broader and wider, even in underneath that kind of like circumstance that they were dealing with. I think that was big tell of where we're going. So anyhow, that is now let's get on to something exciting. I think that we all are excited about. May is coming up, and we're going to be dealing with XRP Las Vegas. Judy and I have been to all of them right from the first one. It's so exciting to see these things just ballooning. And from my understanding, the ticket sales are just going bonkers. You've sold more tickets than what even attended last time. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been mind blowing because, the last 2 years we've done this, it's been in a down market. And,
Mhm.
this thing originally was just supposed to be a meetup for my private group, and it got out of hand, David. You know what I mean? In the
Oh my
best way
God.
possible, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, and I had done a meetup or two prior to that, with my channel and some of the audience members, which was really amazing. And I never forgotten that I had loved that and being able to do that. And I wanted to do it again. So for the first one, I really started out that way as putting together a meetup. And I had gotten John Deaton and I got Eleanor Terrett and I got this one and that one. And I was like, wow, if I
Yeah.
just had a few more people here, I could actually have a full-on conference.
Yeah, and being a musician all those years and understanding the way the whole, concert system works, and I think you're just perfect for it. And kudos to you, by the way, of getting these kind of people. That shows you the level of respect you have in the space for sure.
Well, thank
I think, yeah, yeah, for sure. Now I'm going to ask you, can you give us a little Easter egg of something that nobody else yet knows about, XRP Las Vegas? It doesn't have to be super big, but just
Oh,
something.
I don't have anything off the top of my head that I could give you, and believe
Yeah.
me, I would love to give you something for sure. But I can say, look, Ripple is going to have a huge presence this year, bigger
Okay.
than last year,
Wow. Wow.
um, on stage. And now
Okay.
I can also tell you, Uphold major sponsor this year as they have been. But
Mhm.
think of the news that's happening now with the real USD. You can
Right.
imagine with them being a huge partner, not only for the
Mhm.
retail side of their business, but for the
Yeah.
business to business and enterprise facing side. There's going to be a lot to talk about on stage with them, and it is all going to be brand new, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have the Honorable Christian Carlo coming back. Now, you could speak to this because you were there last year. The conversation that him and I had on
Oh,
stable
amazing.
coins, it was mind blowing talking to him.
And the thing that it unfolded within the time frame of between that last one and this one here is kind of wild too, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
really is. If people were there, they
Yeah.
would have gotten that conversation would have shaped the outline to what we've been watching for the
Yes.
last almost year. It's really true. And
Yeah.
shout out to Chris Giancarlo for that
Yeah.
direction in that conversation to bring us down to that understanding, right? And to give us that kind of clarity on the conversation. So we're talking with him again on stage this year, and just so people know, I'm not on stage all day. I do the opening remarks,
Yeah.
the closing remarks, and one fireside chat. The
Yeah.
rest of it is the rest of the industry, and the digital chamber will be there. You know, the
Yeah.
former senatorial candidate John Deaton will be there. There's going to
Right.
be a huge legal panel case there. MoonPay is going to be there. XRP Cafe, First Ledger, which has been jumping
Yeah.
off, screaming with business, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's been a wild thing too in this last pivot. Yeah.
yeah,
And
and
guys, let me
so
say
many
this.
others.
Let me say this. The thing that I think is one of the best parts of going to XRP Las Vegas is it does not feel like a conference. It feels like a family reunion. It really does. And most of the people like yourself, like DAI, like a lot of the other, content creators in this space, the nice thing about it is that you're out there mingling about, Brad, meeting people that are just out there watching this information, following this, just like we did ourselves. And I think it is just such a great opportunity to be able to get out there and meet with these folks one on one, shaking hands. And of course, you do the whole picture thing and things like that. But just to be able to connect with one another and you realize, hey, we are an army, and that kind of stuff. And it really is. The atmosphere was electric last year. I can't even imagine how much it'll be this year. Guys, I want to share my screen here. And I had pre-planned to do this anyway when we got to this part in our conversation. So here we are. This is XRP Las Vegas. Now, this picture right here, there's a story I have to tell about this picture. This picture right here is from the very first ever XRP Las Vegas. And, we were in the conference the whole time. Well, just before they called people up to do this, I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I could, it was on one, and I ran down. I'm using the washroom. Judy's texting me, get back. They're taking a picture. And I missed it. But then I thought to myself, well, God, you knew it's not a big deal. But this was amazing. And, there's John Deaton right there, of course. Now, I want to just pop up over here. Right, and over here. Now, are the early bird tickets still available, Brad? Are they still available?
They are still available right now, no
Okay.
question about it. And I encourage everybody to go get a ticket. It's a great holiday gift, Christmas gift for a loved one.
It is.
And again, we're not saying this stuff just to say it, right? These
Mm-hmm.
tickets are going to sell out at the rate that we're going. We can only put so many people in that room. So, and we're looking at 2,000 plus attendees this year. So, this is
Right,
going to be a ticket that once you get it, it's a golden Willy Wonka ticket. You're not going to want to get rid of this ticket. So make sure you
right.
get your tickets to it because look, whether it's the after party or whether it's the VIP ticket, get your ticket now and secure your place there. And we also have heavily discounted room link right on the homepage as
Oh,
well,
that's
too,
right.
David.
Yes, yes, yeah, you do. Actually, I'm going to pan up to it right up here. Yeah, it's right up in here where you can book a room. And this is going to be, I'm just going to stop sharing that right there. This is going to be at the MGM Grand. And, this is a, world-class resort. In fact, when we were there, I was blown away. Like, I'm not a, I have only been to Vegas just, for these few conferences and things like that. But I was really impressed with the facilities and everything that was going on and the amount of restaurants and everything that was available. It really is quite amazing and certainly worth it because the amount of information that was provided was truly wild. And I'm not just saying that because oh well we're content creators. No, it was really something. I think most anybody that has ever been there, and I know a lot of folks that are not content creators, they were just so impressed. And you guys you banged it, you nailed it. In terms of like what is presented, what is offered, the amount of information. I just think you really deserve a really, in my estimation, a great thanks. Actually, I would say this during that whole case that we were dealing with the whole SEC Ripple lawsuit kind of stuff. I honestly do believe if it wasn't for the digging that DAIU and some other major players in this space brought out and shined the light on, made it publicly aware, I don't know if we would have saw the level of concern and attention, and maybe even not even the same decisions. Because I think some of that, I think Ripple probably wasn't even aware of some of the stuff that was dug up, and they went with that, and they said, "Wow, this is big," and they went with that. So I
Well,
really,
look,
yeah, that was valuable.
yeah, to your point,
Mhm.
shout out to DAI, right, who
Yeah.
broke
Oh, yeah.
open ETH gate, and then I came out of the gate with him on it, and it was a remarkable moment. I'll never forget it.
Hmm.
He called me, showed me the stuff that he had, and this is two guys who were in this space to share information, learn how to make money, and try to give people information so they could save time in their day. And here we go to this opportunity where it's like, hey, we may have to, you know, take this on and fight this in
Yep.
order to see the resolution of this case sooner because we're already losing here, right? So,
Yep.
and he literally DAI had asked me, he was like, literally, man, just if you're not into it, don't do it. I get it. He was totally cool about it. But he was like, but if you are, man, this may be one of those hills that we have to pick to die on. And it
Hmm.
has always stayed with me that this
Hmm.
is one of those hills that I was willing to die on because we were
Hmm.
already getting beat. We were already losing. We knew the suppression and
Yeah.
what I believe is clear collusion inside of regulatory capture of the SEC agency myself. I believe that. So, and I believe we'll see some kind of accountability at somewhere at some point.
Yeah.
And I think that's another huge reason that we saw Paul Atkins appointed to the SEC as well. But look, I appreciate your kind words on it, but it does take a village, and
It does.
DAI
Yeah.
started it. I came
Hmm.
out of the gate with him, really supported him
Yeah.
on that, and then we really pushed to really bring more and more information out. And then it just started catching fire because
It did.
everyone in the community started to see it, and then the crypto cowboys and the Wheezy Nerd Nations and the
Yeah.
TAIGs of the world really started to come in hard and heavy. And it really, now there's a film and the fruition
Yeah, with
production.
Rigged and XRP Unleashed. Yeah. And you guys, big time contributors to that.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I do. I do think that that had a major, major impact. Brad,
I do too.
I've so enjoyed this conversation. I really do value and appreciate you. I know a lot of this community does.
Thank you.
Most of the time when I'm talking with folks, and I'm either whether it's in coaching or in emails or things like that, and they'll say, well, these are the people I'm following. You can almost bank on, digital perspectives being one of those ones. You can
Oh,
almost
wow.
bank on it. So it is really just a privilege and an honor. And I'll tell you what, if we don't get to talk before the end of the year, I sure hope that you and Danielle, you have a Merry Christmas, an absolutely fantastic, happy and safe New Year. And we are definitely going to catch you in XRP Vegas.
Well, David, I definitely appreciate that and very kind words, man. And I'm glad that we've gotten a chance to meet and get to know each other, you and your wife both. And it's just amazing to meet and get to know you guys. And I have to say, too, selfishly, XRP Las Vegas is a wonderful thing, even though it's an immense amount of work. And
Yeah,
shout out to my wife, the co-founder of XRP Las Vegas.
absolutely.
He's a secret weapon, buddy. I'm going to tell you that right
They
now.
are. Yeah.
Just like DAI, but he's not so much a secret. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah.
because the way this goes, just so people understand, there's really three people corely involved with XRP Las Vegas, with the exception of our amazing staff when we go to the event on the 2-day event.
Right.
And they're incredible people. And most of those people are volunteering their time to us.
Right.
And it's super remarkable. We're very, very fortunate. But it's my wife and I that put the conference together behind the scenes, and then DAI and I who market it on the front side. And
Right. Right.
there's the whole crew right there, with the exception of our killer staff, who is
Yeah.
incredible. And I tell you, and I do mean incredible. What they're able to do over the course of 2.5 days is pretty insane. You wouldn't believe it, and it
Yeah, when
doesn't
you
happen
think of the
without them.
thousands of people that are attending, and the pool party, wow, if you can't even get to just to go to the pool party alone is
Well,
well worth it. Oh my gosh, it was
and
amazing.
I
And
And
yeah,
I just want to say, like I said, selfishly, I get to meet people like you had mentioned,
yeah,
where we work 7 days a week, man.
sure.
DAI, myself, it's 7 days a week. My
Yeah,
wife, during the
yeah,
conference, she has a career also. So she's
right.
doing all this with a career. So, shout out to her. So, 7 days a week, I'm behind two monitors here, and
Yeah,
that's all I see for 12 to 16 hours a day. Right. So, that's my days.
yeah.
So when I
I
get to go
noticed
to
your
something,
eyeballs were turning a little square there. So
oh, absolutely. And when I get to go to XRP Las Vegas,
right,
it's
right.
very, very special for me because
Mhm.
they think it's special they get to meet me, but I mean, it can't be as special as it's for me to meet them because
Right.
they always get to see who I am or whatever.
True,
But I
true.
get to put a face to their name or a
Yeah,
comment that we shared or some kind of
yeah,
communication we shared.
yeah.
And man, it just takes me out. It fills up my spirit gas tank like nothing else, man. It's
Yeah, that's
amazing.
awesome. I think there's, it is. It's kind of, you kind of go out there, you sow some seed, and then when the harvest comes in, it always does kind of blow you away. And in this space, as far as I'm concerned, it's really the people. I oftentimes like to say, we create the content, but they create the community, and they're so valuable in doing it. And you've just provided such a great forum for this community to just get together and really celebrate, like even though the last two, like you said, they were in bear markets, and yet the electricity in those rooms during those conferences in a bear market with everything was being suppressed and we were under the lawsuit and on and on and on. And yet the excitement was so fantastic. I can't even imagine what it's going to feel like when we're going to go there and everyone's sitting at 500+% on their on what they've been, accumulating over the last while. It's just going to be absolutely over the top. I really do believe it. And Brad,
I do.
thank you so much, man.
Oh, absolutely, man. And I just want to say, to your
Mhm.
point, isn't it amazing like what everyone's been through? I mean, because it isn't just a bear
Yeah.
market for 4 years, it's a bear market and being sued, right?
Yeah, and
And
being
then
sued and being treated with the level of disdain that, Elizabeth Warren and, some of these other people, and of course, the smugness of, Gary Gensler rubbing it in our faces. And then of course you had, Vitalik Buterin and different people making comments to disparage, the XRP holder personally, calling
absolutely
us, yeah, it just was obscene. And to think that, we kind of like just came together, we endured that, and we just knew what we held. And so I guess they say the best revenge is success, I think, or something
living
like that.
well.
So,
That's exactly right.
yeah. And so I think we kind of, it's okay a little bit of us to kind of like sit back and say, aha, kind of,
Well, you know what, David? We have taken a lot of heat, and we
yeah,
still to this day, there's a bunch of
yeah.
Bitcoin maxis and tribalists out there. But the
Hmm.
reality is they're about to find out just when I explained in the first part of this interview how short and narrow my view was of not even
Hmm.
understanding how into YouTube or influencers work before I was
Hmm.
even an influencer myself. I
Right,
had
right.
such an ignorant viewpoint on things.
Yeah.
Those people, I believe, are about to get a Godsmack the way I did back in the day.
Yeah,
And
big
they're
wake
about
up
to
call.
find out in a big wake up call that it's like,
Yeah,
hey, man, none of that matters because the real dominance in this market is utility. And they're
right.
just about to find out just how much we have.
Whoa, that's well said. Well said. I really enjoyed it. Well, we'll leave it there. Absolutely fabulous, Brad.
Thank you,
Man,
David.
cannot wait. So, hey, take care and hey, have a Merry, Merry Christmas.
You too, man. Looking forward to it. Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thank you.